why you shouldn't Airbnb your own house. Okay, biscuits, you know if you saw my other video that I was thinking about Airbnb-ing my house when we want to go travel this coming winter because it is expensive to travel. Why not house hack as part of the FIRE movement? So number one reason I found when looking into this is the sheer amount of work to turn your home into basically a hotel, right? You have to depersonalize it. You have to have somewhere safe to put all of your personal items, whether they're valuable or not. You just don't want people touching and messing with them and possibly taking them. And you're gonna have to deep clean your house and declutter it. Decluttering, I don't know about you, but that is something I constantly work on and struggle with, is making sure that I've actually like decluttered my stuff so that it's easier to clean, because then you're gonna have a cleaner come in and clean while guests are coming in and out, you know, an Airbnb and checking in and out. So can you de-home your home, and is it worth the effort? Which takes us to two. Okay, so say you're like, oh, I live a minimalist life, or I don't mind, I can stick everything in my garage or a storage unit, and I feel secure, and I'm willing to put that work in. Can you make enough money to have it be worth it? So what's the number that needs to cover? Do you want to cover your mortgage? Do you want to just kind of supplement a little bit and maybe not cover your mortgage or your rent, but cover a little bit of your travel costs? Do you want to actually make profit from it? What is your time and effort and the wear and tear and the risks associated with Airbnb being your own home out? What's that worth to you? And that could be tough because everybody's looking for a good deal. Everybody wants the cheapest, best quality things. And are you finding that it's really worth the amount of effort for what you're getting in return monetarily? And that can be a tricky one. A lot of people don't like Airbnb because there's a lot of hidden fees. And I know I've faced that as somebody that I've extensively used Airbnb all over the world to stay places. And increasingly, it is becoming more and more expensive because house prices have shot up so much. So, you know, if you're covering somebody's mortgage, you're covering somebody's cleaner, you're covering all their utilities, and then they want to make a profit on it, it's becoming really expensive to stay in Airbnbs. I enjoy it for these reasons. I look at it as I really like access to being able to wash clothes, which for me is mandatory when doing a long trip with kids. I have to have access to a washer and dryer. I really like having the kitchen, and that's kind of ho-hum because then I have to cook on a trip while I'm working and doing things and traveling, but it's nice. And so from my perspective of renting out my house, like, how would I prep my kitchen? You've got to get rid of all of your food. What kind of food am I leaving behind? Like condiments, oil, seasoning, you know. I would really want a great experience for my guests if I were going to Airbnb in my own home. But the amount of effort and detail you have to look at is you kind of need to reverse engineer it and look at, is that worth it? Does it make sense? So a lot of time for me, I find it doesn't make sense because you aren't going to get enough money to cover everything and have it be fully rented out all the time because people want so many deals. You're going to have to really spend a lot of time, especially if it's a family home, decluttering, dehoming, depersonalizing your home. That's a lot to do. How long of a trip are you going to be traveling for to make it worth it? And you've really got to be traveling for like multiple months to have that make sense when I really wrote down on paper everything that was going to be involved. So location, right? And I thought about this when I moved to my most recent place where I live right now, because it's kind of in a more centrally location, which is like a little bit busier than where I want to be. But my long-term thought was that, oh, well, maybe it would be good for rental things if it's not going to be a forever home. And as I've looked into that, that's really paid off as a location. Now, I still don't favor renting out my home unless I was going on like a 6-month sabbatical trip or something, like a big trip, because of the sheer amount of effort involved isn't worth it for the prices I would get in this area. Now, hold on, biscuits. Cleaning up there. Had a little smooch on there. So for me personally, that doesn't work, but location is really something to think about. So if you are house hunting and you're thinking about what neighborhood you want, consider, is it an Airbnb-able area? Okay, now this one is a real pain on the tuchus, I gotta say. Will your area even let you Airbnb? So I live in an area that does not let you Airbnb by the night. So I would probably totally, you can hear traffic, haha, big city. So I probably would Airbnb my home while I travel if I could do it by the night, because I could get a little bit more money and I could kind of change the dynamic of what I was renting out in my home, what's available. And so that would behoove me better. That would actually be really nice to do. And I would love it if I could do that, because then I could do little trips and it would make sense instead of renting out the whole house. So really look at rules. Increasingly, areas will not let you Airbnb. They're super strict. Is there an HOA rule? Is there a city rule? Is there a county rule? Who's going to let you Airbnb? Do you have to have special licenses and business licenses and approval to do that? And even then, maybe you aren't allowed to. Maybe it's like the area I live in, which is super strict on that and makes it extremely difficult to want to do it. It's just too much red tape and regulation, and even then, where I am, I can't do it. So it doesn't even work in my favor at all, even with all that red tape. Because I've gone through the process. I went through the whole process to be able to Airbnb my home out, because after living here for a very short amount of time, I realized it was not a forever home. And I was kind of upset over that, but I just realized it wasn't where was making my soul happy and making my soul sing. And so I looked at alternatives, like, what could I do? Because, I'm still living here, but what can I do to kind of supplement that? And would Airbnb be something good, or a general vacation rental kind of site? And I gotta say, no, I'm not favoring it. So I don't recommend, in general, Airbnb your family home out unless you are going to be gone for a significant amount of time, because the amount of effort you're going to have to put into it, I think, doesn't really pay off if you're taking a 2-week trip. It just doesn't make sense. If you're doing a long trip, I think it could totally make sense to do that, at least to get it to cover some bills. But short-term trips, no, I don't think so. So check all these things. Check the rules and regulations in your area. Check if your home is even in a place where people want to stay. And think about, if you really walk through your house, can you actually imagine getting it to where you're okay with people touching everything that's here, interacting with it, possibly breaking anything? How usable is your space for other people the way you have it set up? And I bet it's a lot more work to get it ready than you think. So would I? Currently, no. If I didn't live here and I just wanted to midterm rental it out, I could totally see doing that, because this house would be great for that. But short-term Airbnb, even if it was allowed where I am, that's a real hard one with a family home. Tell me in the comments, would you do that? Is that something that you're interested in, for your financial independence, for your FIRE, or if you're a digital nomad and you're like, you know what, I want to go zip around the globe for a while, let's rent this place out. Would you do it? Would you put all the work in, or would you rather just have a home base so you can come back to at any moment when you need it? I'm really curious. I will see you over on my Patreon. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh yeah! Do you want juicy, fabulous burlesque self-care where you are getting in touch with your primal self-care needs, how-to tips, hacks, chats, community? I love building the community on there, because Patreon is such a lovely, warm corner of the internet. So pop on over and come say hi on Patreon.